You are watching the New American Media. Live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, the United States of America, Los Angeles, California to be specific. My name's Brian Engelman. Thank you for joining us today on TNAM Radio for Strictly Browns. This is a subdivision of our The Unhappy Hour live sports show, the only Cleveland-centric, Los Angeles-based sports show that we're currently aware of. And today we're going to be talking Strictly Browns. As usual, we're joined with Brandon Odell. Brandon, how are you doing, sir?
Very well. Driving through a little bit of Ohio rain right now. Some cold Ohio.
Cold Ohio.
November.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like that might have been an Axl Rose song that didn't quite make it past the cutting room floor on a previous album.
I believe it was actually a Maynard James Keenan song before he decided to move out to California.
Yeah, he's from Ohio, too. Who are some, by the way, I know it's Strictly Browns, but what other musicians are from Ohio? Wasn't Marilyn Manson?
Whelan, Marilyn Manson.
Was Trent Reznor?
Well, obviously, with 9 Inch Nails being from Cleveland and stuff.
Yeah. It's an interesting place. You don't think of Maynard James Keenan, Trent Reznor, and Marilyn Manson being Ohio musicians, but I guess with the rock...
a Tool song called 11, Under a Dead Ohio Sky.
Right.
Is one of the things from that song.
Well, hey, all right. I think you and I need to also branch away from sports and do a music show from time to time, review new albums, check out some new music. Is there any music you're listening to right now? Anything good on your radar, Brandon? Anything new?
Looking forward to the new Green Day and Mumford & Sons coming out on Tuesday. Besides that, actually been doing some backtracking. I've been getting into some, and Nick that I'm with here could certainly probably agree with some of these bands. I picked up a double live CD from a group called the Disco Biscuits that's real solid. And also have an album from a band called Sound Tribe Sector 9, also quite solid. And picked up a really good live Allman Brothers album a couple of weeks ago.
Very cool. Yeah, during down times of music, it's always good to go back through the catalog. I was listening to some Goldfinger. I was listening to... I'm just going through my whole CD collection trying to find some other stuff. I'm currently listening to AWOL Nation. I don't know if they're playing that on any of the rock stations out where you're at, but AWOL Nation...
What? We couldn't hear you.
AWOL Nation, AWOL, AWOL Nation.
And
Muse has a new album coming out in 2 weeks, so they've started leaking some songs out, so we've been checking those out. But I'll tell you what, without any further ado, let's introduce your guest. Nick, say hello to everybody and introduce yourself if you'd be so kind, sir.
My name's Nick Flattery, and I'm actually from a town called Hicksville, Ohio. That is the name of the town. It's no joke, even though it is kind of a joke of a town.
Really? Hicksville. Okay. See, they called us in Brunswick Brunstucky. They called us Brunstuckians. And Strongsville was Snobsville. But you were actually from Hicksville. Where is that?
2 miles from the Indiana line.
Oh,
you know where Defiance, Ohio is?
Yeah.
Okay, straight west from there.
So you guys are making the you're probably on the turnpike in the rain, the cold rain, the cold September Ohio rain, and I guess that's going to play a big factor in the game tomorrow. So you guys are both going to the Browns game. Is this the first game you guys have hit up so far?
Yeah, I haven't been. I didn't go to any preseason games and didn't go to the Eagles. So yeah, this will be my first one for the year.
Same
here.
Gotcha. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get to the Bills game in a second because this rainy weather they're predicting is going to really change the dynamics of what the game is going to be. That they're expecting it to be sloppy and kind of miserable, which might nullify this offensive attack from the Bills and the Browns' defensive secondary problems. But before we do, let's talk about the Bengals game. We'll start with you, Brandon. What do you take away after watching that Bengals game? What are some of the main things that you noticed, positive and negative?
Well, I mean, certainly the positives, everything that you didn't see from the offense in week 1, you saw in week 2. You saw Brandon Weeden making good decisions. You saw Trent Richardson running the ball with authority. You saw him being able to make defenders miss. And you saw some of the other guys make some good plays. You saw some good plays from the wide receivers. Mohamed Massaquoi had a good game. Greg Little held on to the ball near the end zone, which he during the first game dropped, which was intercepted. Even Ogbanaya had some good plays as that third down back, catching the ball out of the backfield on some screens. It was unfortunate that he fumbled the ball that one time, but really overall, offensively they looked great. Defensively, being down both their top 2 corners, I think really hurt, really exposed some of those young guys like Buster Screen, for instance. But when you get 6 sacks and an interception, you'd like to think that your chances are pretty good that you'd be able to win the game. You also think that if you get 5 turnovers, that there'd be a pretty good chance that you'd win the game. And right now, unfortunately, we're 0-2.
What about you, Nick? What jumped out at you during that Bengals game?
I just saw some solid things finally on the offense, and coming into this week, if our defense shows up like they did in week 1, and the offense comes back like they did against the Bengals, we're going to be a tough team to beat. That's just always been the problem. It seems like one side of the ball does really well while the other one struggles a little bit. So if we can finally put both sides of the ball together, we're in pretty good shape.
Well, I made the comment watching the game that when Brandon Weeden and Pat Shurmur and the rest of these guys figure out that you can easily dump the ball off to Trent Richardson, and anytime you give him a touch, if he has 5 yards of space around him, he can bowl you over, he can do a juke, he can do a spin move. That guy is an instant touchdown waiting to happen if you can just dump it off to him. And I really thought, watching the Browns team, that they put up, 322 yards of passing offense, no turnovers, 2 touchdowns, and some strong running by Richardson. My thoughts are that this could be a very scary, very productive and scary offense by midseason. Brandon, what do you think about that?
Well, I guess the main thing is this is what we've seen from the offense. We've seen 1 game of putrid performance.
Horrible.
And we've seen 1 game of very solid performance. Let's not put it into the excellent range yet, because it's not excellent unless it's a W. I guess what you wanted to say after week 1 is the offense wasn't quite as bad as what you saw. And then maybe what you say after week 2 is the offense wasn't quite as good as what you saw. So I think you want to know where that, that baseline is for what the average performance is that you're going to see from them. I mean, are you going to see Weeden put up 320 yards with 2 touchdowns and no picks every week? That'd be pretty awesome. But, let's be honest with ourselves. Weeden in week 1 threw 4 picks and looked lost out there. So, I think it's hard to truly make a real statement about where this offense is going to be by week 8, unless we've been through maybe a few weeks of what can be described as consistent play.
Let me ask you this, Nick. I was watching the game against the Bengals, and I felt the Browns were on the short side of some pretty bad officiating plays. I really felt like some of the calls by these replacement refs were kind of out there, kind of weak. Do you have any thoughts on the officiating so far? Because across the league, you're starting to see a backlash where players, coaches, front office people are really saying these replacement refs just don't have their act together. You got to get the pro refs back in. Do you think that's playing a major factor in the league, and especially with that Browns game last week by chance?
Well, I've always thought that for the most part, you can't base your wins and losses on officiating. And there's always going to be some bad calls. There's always going to be some good calls. And the thing we got to do is just not put yourselves in the position to keep getting offsides, false starts. For the most part, I think the officials aren't doing that bad of a job. It could always be better, sure. But I didn't think it was that big of a factor on what happened last week.
Well, Brandon, who has impressed you the most out of the entire Browns, be it the coaches, be it the players on offense or defense or special teams? Who's been the biggest surprise? Who's been exceeding your expectations, and who's been letting you down so far 2 weeks into the season? I know it's only 1/8 through, but what's good, what's not so good right now?
Well, I think as far as the players that have impressed me, I think you have to, especially after 2 weeks of play, rather than talking about individual games, I think you have to give it to DeQuell Jackson. I think, he's making a really solid run at AFC Player of the Month, which I think actually he won last year, the first 4 games of the season as well, if I'm not mistaken, Defensive Player of the Month. So I think DeQuell Jackson with his sacks, with his 2 interceptions, one of which was returned for a touchdown, I think would be a hard person to deny that he has been very impressive thus far in the season. As far as disappointments go, I don't know if it's so much of a disappointment as it is maybe he's going to have a slower learning curve than what some of us have thought, but I was really hoping to see a little bit out of Josh Gordon, and really I guess he's had maybe just a couple of catches so far. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing him become a factor a little bit, but he's been largely non-existent. And then I would say the tight ends as well. I don't know if that's necessarily a product of just Brandon Weeden not having chemistry, of them not being open. I don't know what it is, but the tight ends really haven't been a part of things at all so far. So I think if you can get Jordan Cameron, who, like Evan Moore, who was cut, was the quote-unquote star player of camp, we can get Jordan Cameron involved in the offense a little bit. I think it's going to create some more mismatches, and it's even going to open up things for some of those receivers on the outside that much more.
I think that's a good point about the tight ends really needing to kind of step it up and do some really get some good work done, because you see what Gronkowski's doing over with Aaron Hernandez over for the Patriots. If you have a good tight end, it really changes the dynamics of all of your entire offense. It really puts pressure on the defense to, you can't play too loose on wide receivers. You can't play too tight on the running backs. It's really that in-between phase that you can really use to your advantage. And I like the DeQuell Jackson comment. That guy has been very overrated. He's looked fantastic the first few games of the year. What about you, Nick? Any pluses, any negatives, any star players, any disappointments so far 2 games in?
You're coming in kind of low. We're having a really hard time hearing you. I think you asked Nick if he had any players that he's been impressed with so far.
Yeah, same question.
Pretty much Brandon covered that one. I mean, I'm really looking to see Richardson break out a little more. Game 1, it was a pretty sad performance. Game 2 was an okay performance. I'm just looking to see him. I'm kind of on the fence as far as where I'd rate him right now. I think the potential's there. And then I've been a little disappointed in our receiving core, actually. There's definitely some catches that should have been made in both games, and they're just not stepping up to the plate.
Well, one of the things that I've been a little impressed with, he hasn't broken anything yet, but it kind of looks like Josh Cribbs is getting some consistent yardage now on special teams. He's looking comfortable back there again. Nothing broken for a touchdown. Maybe he lost a step, but to me it looks like the special teams has their act together a little bit more as far as punt returns and kick returns. Any thoughts on special teams?
Well, I mean, you can't really say they have their act together overall, because they also gave up a punt return touchdown last week. They are getting Ray Ventrone back this week, who is the special teams captain, along with Josh Cribbs. So that's going to be a little bit of a boost for the special teams. But, giving up that punt return touchdown, yeah, Josh Cribbs has looked pretty good, pretty solid on his return so far. But still, I mean, I think the stat that I saw this week is he hasn't busted one for a touchdown, I believe, since 2009. That's 2 full seasons without a return touchdown on punts or kicks. And that was after having, I believe, 4 of them in 2009. So, I think that getting a chance to see Josh Cribbs finally maybe get one to the house, hey, maybe even starting this week, you want to do it in front of the home fans and really get this crowd pumped up. That would be an outstanding way to really get the momentum swinging in our favor for this game. So, I'd love to see a big play out of Josh Cribbs. He's looked good so far, but, really the biggest runs for him were in that first game and not last week.
Yeah, and you're right. The coverage team that gave up that touchdown return for Pac-Man Jones, that was the difference in the game. You had the Browns battle the Bengals completely even, except for that touchdown return. So you're right about that. I think I just heard you cut out. Are you still with us, Brandon?
Yeah, it's just I guess maybe we're driving through a tough area. You'll be kind of coming in and out on our end, but we can hear you. You were just,
okay.
But you might want to repeat what you said.
No, perfect. Let's move over to the Bills. You guys are going to watch the game live and in person. What if you were game planning against the Bills, and you're the head coach of this team right now? What are you looking at aside from C.J. Spiller, who's looked fantastic so far? What are we going up against with the Bills?
I think that's kind of a tough call. The Bills supposedly rebuilt their defensive line over the off season. They brought in, the highest priced free agent acquisition in their history in bringing Mario Williams, who was, if you remember, the very controversial number 1 overall pick the year that everyone was clamoring for Reggie Bush. And then Reggie Bush went number 2 to the Saints, and, he won a Super Bowl there, but really overall never really quite lived up to the hype on his end either. Mario Williams was solid, but once again, in his regard, hasn't really ever truly lived up to the hype. I think he's a very solid player, but had a major injury last year. I think he's still working his way back from that. Kyle Williams is the real nasty defensive tackle that they have that I've always liked to see play. So they have a good defensive line. It's going to be a nice test for our offensive line. Leotis McKelvin ran a punt return back for a touchdown last week in their win against the Chiefs. So that's going to be something that the punt return team is going to have to definitely keep in mind. Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback can kind of, he can be on or he can be off. And he's looked very good in some games, and he's looked just flat terrible in some games as well. You hope that Dick Duran's, schemes that he puts out there, bringing in a lot of fresh defensive linemen, can expose him a little bit. Can you stop C.J. Spiller? I mean, he's had a few good games so far, but let's not say that C.J. Spiller is all of a sudden the second coming of Jim Brown here. Prior to this year, he was looked upon as really largely being a first-round bust. I believe the Bills took him maybe 9th overall about 3 years ago. And if Fred Jackson was not injured, let's be honest with ourselves, C.J. Spiller would be the second man up. So, but he's performed very well in Fred Jackson's absence, and we'll see what he's got this week. But he could be more of a streakier kind of a player. So overall, those are probably. I mean, you certainly hear about Steve Johnson as well as being a very solid wide receiver. I'll never forget the game a few years back. I think it was Stevie Johnson's rookie year, or at least his breakout year, and the Bills gave the Steelers everything that they could handle, and the Steelers were, I think that was the last year that they went to the Super Bowl but lost it maybe, and Johnson had the ball go right through his fingers for a touchdown that would have won the game in overtime. And ended up going over to the Steelers got the ball and scored and beat them and stuff. But I'll always remember that play because Johnson was talking a lot of smack prior to that game and just had an easy touchdown that he dropped. So he definitely is susceptible to some mind games a little bit. So overall, those are probably the main players that you're going to watch for. If we can get to Fitzpatrick, put some pressure on him, we'll see what happens.
You know what you just reminded me of? You reminded me of Kelly Holcomb throwing it to, now
Northcutt dropping that
Yeah,
ball.
it was Northcutt. I was going to say Kevin Johnson, but right, it was Northcutt against the Steelers. Oh, that was horrible. Right at the numbers, dropping that one.
And I'll never forget, because that game was the day after the Buckeyes won their national title game.
The highs and the lows of being a Cleveland sports fan. Nick, what was your most disappointing moment as a Cleveland sports fan? When I say that, what's the first thing that jumped to your mind?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, what is the lowest point of being a Cleveland sports fan for you? What was the most disappointing moment as a Cleveland sports fan for you?
Oh man, that's a real tough question. There's been so many.
I know.
I guess the biggest disappointment, and that really wasn't much of our fault, but going 10-6 and not making the playoffs. But that can happen in our league. And about every game I've ever gone to seems like it's a disappointment. I've only actually been in the stadium for about 5 or 6 wins in my entire life. So
5 or 6 wins. How old are you? 75?
Around.
Man, I don't know that I've ever seen. I almost always get a loss. I was there on the last game at Municipal Stadium before Art Modell stole the team, and I saw that win. But usually I'm just there for losses. I don't recall seeing a win over there.
Well, that's usually the way it goes for me too. I'm about 50-50, but it seems like I always remember the losses. It seems like, because you're always so happy leaving on a win. But like I said, we got about a 2.5-hour drive, and you just sit there and stew about it the whole way.
Well, are you guys planning? Let me ask you this, because I've talked to Brandon. He said he doesn't usually tailgate. Do you guys have any tailgate plans before the game? Because that's always one of my favorite parts: is the beverages, the barbecue, the beanbag tossing. Whatever activities can be part of that process. I love it. Are you guys planning on doing anything before the game?
I'll be honest, I've never actually done the barbecuing on my own and brought a hibachi grill and gone that far. I always bring some snacks, maybe stop at Subway. We have a real good corned beef place down the street from my house, my dad's house, I should say. We've certainly stopped and grabbed some sandwiches to bring down there. But my beautiful wife, whom I love dearly for deciding that it was okay for me to enjoy myself for an evening with my friends while she stayed home with the baby, was nice enough to put together a really nice little bag of goodies. So we've got a bunch of chips, popcorn, beef jerky, peanut M&Ms. We have cheese dip, and we've got bean dip. So we'll definitely and of course the prerequisite red Solo cups, which are needed to enjoy adult beverages down in the parking lots as well.
Yes, hot chocolate. I'm sure you're referencing there. Hot chocolate in the Solo cups.
Don't drink any hot chocolate.
All right, well, let's get some predictions. Brandon, what's going to happen on Sunday? What are we going to see out of the Browns? Are they going 1-2, or is it going to be 0-3?
Okay, I'm really, I really didn't think that they had the firepower to beat the Bengals last week. I was really impressed by what I saw from the offense. I'm not overly certain that they're going to be able to put it together consistently, but Buffalo is the team that we match up with the best out of the 3 teams that we've played so far, and we really stood toe-to-toe with both of the first 2 games that we've played. So I'd really like to see the Browns come out with some emotion. I think that Trent Richardson has really fired up this fan base. Everything that I'm hearing is that he is, even just after the first 2 weeks of the season, has become a true emotional leader in the locker room. And he has never been 0-2 in his life. and this is something new for him. So, provided that Trent Richardson can get off a little bit, I really like the Browns' chances here. It's just a matter of if the offense can play, it doesn't even have to be as good of a game as what it had last week. If it can put together a solid game, and then if the defense can come back down to normal a little bit, the defensive backfield kind of figure out things. I like the Browns' chances in this game. I like the Browns' chances in this game going into the season, and I see no reason that they shouldn't be able to win this game. I don't know how high of a score it would be, but let's say Browns 20-10. I like the sound of that.
What about you, Nick? Let's get your prediction.
I'm thinking 23-17 Browns with another solid performance from our fantastic field goal kicking unit and taking it home.
Well,
one rushing passing touchdown.
Well, I liked what I saw out of Weeden. It depends on how filthy the weather's going to be tomorrow. If the weather is just disgusting, 24-14 Cleveland. If the weather's not so bad, I'll say 30-17 then. I think the Browns are going to win. I really do. I think they're overdue to put one full game together with offense and defense. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, guys. I'm pretty envious that you get to go out there. Just make sure you stay warm and have a good time doing whatever sort of pregame ritual you guys choose. I'm pretty jealous you're going to get to see them live. So make sure you drive safe and definitely enjoy it, because when we're out here, man, there's no team in Los Angeles. I don't care. I can't watch the Chargers. I don't want to go to an Oakland Raiders game or over to Arizona. There is no pro football for me to see here. So soak it up. Soak it up for sure. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. Thank you for calling us today on the road. Make sure you drive safe, all right?
Sounds great. Go Browns.
Go Browns. Thanks a lot, Nick. Thanks a lot, Brandon. Those are the predictions from, well, all three of us, I suppose. Really, if the Browns can put a full game together, this team could be pretty good. I think Brandon Weeden is a special quarterback. I think he's old. I don't think he's old. I know that he's old, 28, 29 years old now. He's an older gentleman. But if you have a running back, a young, talented running back like Trent Richardson, you can get a lot of stuff done if you can manage a game. I'll tell you what, 320 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns from your running back, 1 running, 1 receiving, that's all right. And if you got a defense with DeQuell Jackson leading a team that's putting tons of pressure on the quarterbacks, I mean, they sacked Andy Dalton and Michael Vick a ton in those first 2 games. And then if you get Phil Taylor back on defense, probably about game 8, when you get Joe Hayden back, 3 more games, he's serving a suspension for being dumb. I think that defense could be pretty strong. And with the focus now, Josh Cribbs with his returns, if we can get a break, get him to pop 1 or 2 and not give up the Pac-Man Jones return like we did last week. Really, that's what cost us that Bengals game. I mean, that was essentially a tie game, minus that 1 special teams play. So, I mean, we're battling. We're within 1 possession, 1 score of all the teams that we're facing. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Buckeyes win. Maybe not pretty, but they win against UAB to stay undefeated. Really looking forward to some NFL action tomorrow. But this has been a special edition of Strictly Browns, broadcasting on Saturday because Brandon is driving into Cleveland Browns Stadium to check out the Browns versus the Bills tomorrow, Sunday. So as always, go Browns. My name is Brian Engelman. Thank you for listening to TNAM Radio. Do us a favor, if you haven't liked our Facebook page, The New American Media, go like that. If you're not following us on Twitter, please do that. Go ahead and do that. That is at American_media_. And if you're listening to this after the fact on YouTube, please click subscribe. Leave your comments. Tell some friends. We talk Cleveland sports and the Buckeyes all the time. Oh, yeah, we also talk politics, spirituality, Second Amendment, Congress, esoteric. We talk everything else on Agree to Disagree. So we do a lot of stuff over here. So whether you just want to deal in some sports or get a little deeper into some more controversial subject matter, it's all fair game. Just, agree to disagree. Keep it mostly civil. Leave your comments. Tell your friends. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll be back next week. Appreciate your time as always. Take care. Agree to Disagree. Yeah, it's a radio show we have on thenewamericanmedia.com every single Friday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Join the show. What do we talk about? Politics, religion, and spirituality. Basically anything you're not supposed to talk about in a bar. You're not supposed to have these conversations inside of a bar, but we have them every single Friday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific on thenewamericanmedia.com. Join the show, offer your opinion, and let's agree to disagree, but let's have a good conversation. You are watching The New American Media.